own essential systems.
Cooper, ready up.
Easy, Cole. He just left VR. He needs a minute to decompress. He'll be ready to go. Trust me.
VR, or virtual reality, is one of the few platforms that is really special. Even mundane tasks, like sitting in a cubicle for work, normally something like that would be considered boring, but in VR, it's a game that people will literally pay for. If people get enjoyment out of something as simple as that, imagine what is possible using virtual reality. One of VR's weaknesses to begin with was its lack of content. There weren't really many games or worlds to explore, and people will tell you now that that issue is solved. And while there is a pretty large pool of titles now, a lot of them really lack any real depth, to be honest. Swinging at blocks to the beat of a song is really fun, don't get me wrong, but it's fun on a flat screen, especially since you've probably played Guitar Hero. Now, I have nothing wrong with Beat Saber. It's one of my favorite VR experiences that I've had. The problem is that it is one of my favorite VR experiences that I've ever had. For a platform that can offer so much, why is something so simple my favorite? Because there really isn't anything better. That being said, I'm not really capable of doing better. I don't have the skills or the patience to make my own game. So my contribution is giving ideas for games, hardware, all sorts of fixes to try and get VR to be the best that it can be in my own way. And one of my ideas, which is far from original, is just to have big names be a part of VR. One of the first ones that I've thought of that would be fun to have in VR is Titanfall. My initial thought was just simply to port over the campaign from Titanfall 2 into VR, and I still think that would be a fun experience. But again, I don't think there's enough depth to that. So my second idea was to change it a little bit. Instead of being from the perspective of the mech, you would be in the perspective of inside of the mech. Perhaps you would have two joysticks. One controls the arms and one controls the legs. And you see out of a window. So each mech that you get is a little more complex in its controls. You have new weapons, you have to switch to targeting mode or lock-on mode. Basically, you would just have a finer level of control over the Titan compared to what you had on the flat screen version. And while this is possible to achieve on flat screen, I think having it in VR would make the experience more worthwhile. After that, I expanded upon that idea and I decided maybe I should just toss out the campaign idea altogether and maybe make it as a kind of a training course type of deal, where you have training missions on how to pilot your mech, on how to evacuate an area in your mech, or if you have to ditch your mech and go somewhere else. I also thought that maybe if you're going to be inside the mech, perhaps you have to do maintenance, because it makes sense that if you're fighting that there would be some damage inside of the suit, you know? You see in the movies and stuff like that where the insides kind of like spark and stuff. So imagine having to take out a toolkit to rewire something. I think that would add a really cool depth to a game that is kind of just about big mechs destroying other big mechs. Of course, even though the game is called Titanfall, there is the aspect of pilots. So there should be a training course for boots on the ground, running through difficult terrain, or popping out of your Titan in order to do some reconnaissance. So there would be kind of like a two-part training course. One for your standard pilot training, and one for your standard mech training. One of my favorite ideas was the aspect of, for the pilot training, maybe add a movement system kind of like Windlands, where you grapple around at really fast pace in order to kind of replicate that fast-paced feeling of Titanfall. Of course, you can't really have Titanfall without a multiplayer, and so I did put a little bit of thought into this. It's a little more difficult in VR to have multiplayer games, simply because the player base is unfortunately small. So if there was going to be multiplayer, I would probably limit it to as few modes as possible, but the only way that I can see it working is to have a mech only and a pilot only mode. And if the game does use the Titanfall name, then you could maybe even bring back some of the old maps as kind of a nostalgia bait for fanboys and the sorts, as a way to grab more people into the VR community. Of course, I also thought of some monetization options, because, the companies are going to want some level of profit from this, right? So I thought, well, how about you have custom mech interiors for sale? You can make your inside of your mech a bright pink or something like that. Or you can have a little figurine in your display, or stickers on the sides, All of these cosmetic things that are purely cosmetic, and you can get a lot of bang for your buck right there. On top of that, for the pilot, since it has a grapple system, you can have custom grapples. The rope can be customized, the hook can be customized, you can have stickers on that as well. There's a whole lot for monetization on this that could be purely cosmetic, like people want, rather than having it be pay to win. My final few ideas are just little things. So for that multiplayer mode, I figure instead of having the mechs be destroyed, maybe add to that idea from earlier about repairing the insides. Maybe your mech, when it takes enough damage, it shuts down, and you have to repair some of the innards until it's properly working again. And then for the pilot mode, I think maybe jump on that train of the Battle Royale, although a lot of people have done that, so maybe not. That one I haven't done too much thinking on. So there's a little more room for thought on that one. So let me know in the comments what you would think for a multiplayer pilot mode in VR. And feel free to give me ideas for other parts of this video. If enough is added, I might even make a part 2 to this video that expands even more on this current idea. Of course, also let me know what you thought about this idea, and make sure to subscribe if you liked it and would like to see more ideas from me in the future.